Welcome to Christ Word, where everyday lives meet the light of God's Word. Here, we don't preach. We tell stories. Moments of doubt, turning points, quiet revelations, all woven with raw emotion and unshakable faith. You're not just listening to someone else's journey. You might just find your own reflection in it. And maybe, just maybe, by the end, you'll discover the answer you've been searching for. There are moments in life when it feels like you have nothing left. When everything you've ever worked for, everything you've held on to, just slips away in the blink of an eye. I stood there, amidst the ruins of my life, and I whispered the words, "God, I have nothing left." At that moment, I wasn't weak. I had always believed in my own strength, in my plans. But in the darkest hour, when the whole world seemed to turn its back on me, I realized I was empty, as if everything I had was swept away by a fierce flood. This story begins on a day that changed everything, not a simple accident, nor a mere betrayal, but a chain of losses, piling up one after another, threatening to break me completely. Family, work, faith, dreams, the very things I spent my life building started shaking. A wrong decision, an unexpected crisis, a loved one drifting away, harsh words cutting deep, it was like daggers piercing straight through my heart. I found myself standing on the edge of despair, not knowing what to do, where to go, or what to believe in anymore. At night, when everything was still and silent, the questions came flooding in. Why me? How much more can I take? Is God really listening? I tried to stay calm, but loneliness and pain refused to let me be. Every thought circled back to one question: how do I survive? How do I keep from breaking? That's when I started to pray, not with fancy words, but with honesty, with the deepest and rawest desperation. God, I have nothing left. Please give me strength. Help me see the light in this darkness. That prayer, so simple, I never imagined it could change my life. But in that moment, it became the only anchor, a small voice but the most necessary one amidst my storm. I can't say everything changed right away after that prayer. It wasn't an instant miracle. But something did begin to shift. A feeling, strange yet real, started creeping into my soul. The first 24 hours passed in waiting and doubt. I kept asking myself, is something really coming? Or is this just my mind playing tricks? But then, in that very time, the first signs appeared. No one believed it. No one thought it was possible in my life. But things began to turn around, in a strange, unexplainable way. And just 48 hours later, a small event, seemingly insignificant, opened a door I thought was shut forever. I want to share with you those moments, the simple prayers filled with power, and how faith helped me rise when hope was gone. But not now. Come walk this journey with me, step by step, so you can feel the strength of a soul that refuses to give up, the power of a sincere prayer, and the miracle of faith. There's one thing I want you to remember: even when you're in your darkest valley, you are never alone. Even if you don't hear it, there is a power listening, ready to answer in ways you never imagined. And now, as I stand on this new path, I want to share a story, not just about a miracle, but about perseverance, about trust, and about how God can make the impossible possible. You will join me through every moment, every thought, every feeling I experienced. From utter despair to the breakthrough that shocked me. And there's one more thing, in this journey, there's a secret. A small detail that no one noticed, but that changed everything for me. Do you want to know what it is? If you do, come with me. The story isn't over yet. It's only just begun. After that desperate prayer, the hours that followed felt like walking through a thick fog. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for anymore: a sign, a feeling, a sudden answer. All I knew was that I had reached the bottom. When you're at that place, the only direction left is up, but even that climb can feel impossible. In those early moments, I didn't feel the thunderous miracles we often hear about in stories. There was no blinding light or booming voice. Instead, it was something quieter, almost imperceptible. A calmness. A strange peace that settled in my chest, as if God was gently saying, "I'm here." I had always thought faith was about big, bold acts. Praying in churches filled with people. Declaring your belief openly. But this was different. It was a whisper inside, a connection in the silence. I remember sitting by my window that night, looking out at the dark sky, feeling completely vulnerable. The past few days had drained me, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I thought I knew what it meant to be strong, but now I understood strength differently. It wasn't about holding everything together by myself. It was about letting go. Letting go of control. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of pride. I whispered another prayer, almost a plea this time, "God, help me see your love even when I feel lost. Help me trust when I have no answers." And slowly, things began to change. Not in a flashy way, but in the small moments. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of gratitude, something I hadn't felt in weeks. The sun was shining through the blinds, casting warm stripes on the floor. I took a deep breath and started my day by simply thanking God. Thank you for this new day. Thank you for the breath in my lungs, the chance to try again. That simple act of gratitude was like a seed planted in dry soil. It didn't immediately bloom, but it started to grow roots. I realized that starting my day by thanking God shifted something inside me. It gave me a foundation, no matter how shaky the rest of my world was. Throughout that day, I kept praying, not with fancy words, but with honesty. God, let me see the depth of your unchanging love. Let me feel it in the midst of my pain. And then, as I moved through my day, I noticed the smallest details. A kind word from a stranger. A phone call from someone I hadn't talked to in a while. An unexpected opportunity that I didn't see coming. At first, I almost ignored these moments, too numb or too afraid to believe they meant anything. But each one chipped away at my doubt, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I realized faith wasn't about never having struggles. It was about walking through them with a belief that something better was ahead, even if I couldn't see it yet. That night, I read some passages from the Bible, words I had heard many times but never truly absorbed. Passages about hope, perseverance, and God's promises. They spoke to me in a way they never had before, as if the words were written just for my situation. One verse stayed with me, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." I felt seen. I felt understood. Over the next day, I kept returning to prayer. I began to notice how my mindset was slowly shifting. The desperation was still there, but so was a new kind of hope. Not the kind based on what I could control, but on trusting that God was working, even when I couldn't feel it. I want to be honest, this wasn't easy. There were moments when the old fears and doubts stormed back. When I questioned whether I was fooling myself. When the weight of my problems felt unbearable. But every time, I chose to return to that simple prayer, "God, I have nothing left." And every time, a little more peace came. By the second day, something changed in the way I viewed my struggles. Instead of seeing them as dead ends, I began to see them as part of a larger story, a story I couldn't yet understand, but one I was willing to trust. I realized that faith is not about having all the answers. It's about holding on to God's hand through the unknown, knowing He is faithful even when life isn't. That day, I reached out to a close friend, someone I had pushed away in my pain. I shared my struggles honestly, not trying to hide my fears or pretend I had it all together. And what happened next surprised me. That friend didn't judge. They didn't offer empty platitudes. They simply listened. They prayed with me. They reminded me of my worth when I had forgotten it. It was in that moment I saw another layer of God's love, working through people, through kindness, through presence. By the time I went to sleep that night, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Not because my problems were solved, but because I had found a way to face them without being crushed. This was not the end of the journey. Far from it. But it was a beginning, the first step toward healing and restoration. Looking back now, I realize those 2 days were a turning point. The time when my broken prayer met God's unchanging love in a way that transformed me from the inside out. Sometimes, when life strips everything away, we're forced to confront what really matters, our faith, our trust, and our willingness to surrender. And when we do, that's when the impossible begins to happen. The days after those first 2 felt different. Not because my challenges vanished, they didn't. In fact, some problems grew more intense. But inside me, something had shifted. That quiet peace I found in prayer became a steady anchor. It was like having a secret strength I never knew I had. I started to notice things I had overlooked before. The way a simple morning breeze could calm my restless mind. The gentle light filtering through the trees. The sound of birds singing, even on the hardest days. It was as if God was speaking in these small moments, reminding me that life still held beauty, even in pain. One morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Instead of rushing to my usual worries, I sat quietly and whispered, "God, help me see you today." I didn't expect anything spectacular, but that day unfolded in ways I never could have planned. An old friend reached out unexpectedly, offering a word of encouragement. A problem that seemed impossible to solve began to unravel slowly. Even a chance conversation with a stranger brought an idea that sparked hope. It was like the pieces of my broken life were starting to connect, one by one, gently, without force. But the real test came when I faced the hardest part of my struggle head-on. The moment when my fears wanted to pull me under again. I was invited to speak at a gathering, something I would have never imagined doing weeks before. My heart raced, doubts crowded my mind, and the old voice of fear whispered, "You're not ready. You'll fail." Yet, something deeper inside me said, "You're not alone." I prayed quietly, "God, give me courage. Let your love be my strength." Standing in front of that group, I shared my story, the brokenness, the despair, the raw honesty of my prayer. At first, my voice trembled, but as I spoke, I felt a warmth spreading through me. It was as if God's presence was holding me steady. People listened. Some nodded, some wiped tears away. I realized my pain wasn't just mine, it was a bridge connecting me to others who had faced their own storms. That moment taught me a powerful truth: vulnerability is not weakness. It is the doorway to connection, to healing, and to faith made real. In the following days, I kept returning to prayer. Not asking for everything to be fixed instantly, but for the strength to keep walking, step by step, with trust. One night, overwhelmed by doubts, I sat alone and prayed with all my heart, "God, I can't see the way. I'm afraid. Please carry me when I can't walk." In the silence that followed, I felt a gentle reassurance. It wasn't a voice, but a deep calm that settled over my soul. The kind of peace that surpasses understanding. I realized then that faith isn't about never feeling fear or pain. It's about holding on to God's love even when everything else is uncertain. Slowly, I began to see that the impossible was not about changing my circumstances immediately. It was about changing me, shaping my heart, renewing my hope, and giving me the courage to face each day. And as I surrendered more, life began to open new doors. Opportunities one never dreamed of appeared. Relationships healed. Doors closed in some areas but opened wide in others. The prayer that started as a cry from emptiness became a wellspring of strength. I found myself whispering simple prayers throughout the day, "God, thank you for your faithfulness. Help me love like you love. Guide my steps when I feel lost." These small conversations became lifelines. Looking back, I see that what I thought was the end was really a new beginning. The brokenness, the pain, and the desperation were part of a larger story, one of hope, faith, and transformation. And though the journey is far from over, I am learning to trust the process, to believe that God's timing is perfect, even when I don't understand it. The prayer that once came from a place of having nothing left has changed everything. It opened my eyes to a love that never fails, a presence that never leaves, and a power that makes the impossible possible. I want to share something that surprised me deeply in this journey, how God's answers don't always come in the ways we expect. When I first prayed, "God, I have nothing left," I was ready for an immediate rescue. A quick fix. A sudden miracle. But that's not how it happened. Instead, the change came through what felt like ordinary moments. Moments when I chose to trust rather than panic. Moments when I chose to speak words of faith instead of despair. Moments when I allowed myself to be honest about my fears, but still reached out to God for hope. One morning, as I was reflecting on all I had been through, a simple truth hit me: sometimes God's love shows up not as an answer to our demands, but as a steady presence through the wait. It's in the waiting that our faith is tested and strengthened. There was a day when everything seemed to be falling apart again. Old worries resurfaced, and I felt the familiar pull of hopelessness. But that morning, instead of sinking into fear, I sat down and prayed differently. I said, "God, I don't understand what's happening, but I choose to trust you. Help me hold on." I realized I didn't have to have it all figured out. I didn't need to know the full plan. I just needed to keep walking forward with God's hand in mine. That day, I was reminded of a lesson that faith isn't about certainty, it's about trust when we have none. Another thing I learned is how important it is to speak truth to ourselves. When the enemy of doubt tries to whisper lies, "You're alone, this will never get better, you're too broken," I started to fight back with what I knew to be true. Simple declarations: I am not alone. God's love never fails. I am worthy of healing. It felt strange at first, almost awkward. But these words became lifelines. Slowly, they reshaped the way I saw myself and my situation. I also began to see that faith is not a solo journey. We're meant to walk it together. I opened up more to friends and family. Shared my struggles honestly. Let others pray with me. And in doing so, I found new strength and encouragement. I discovered that community is a vital part of healing. Sometimes God's love shows through the kindness of people around us, through a listening ear, a warm hug, or a gentle reminder that we are not forgotten. As I grew in faith, I started to notice that prayer wasn't just about asking God for help. It became a way to align my heart with His. To find peace in surrender. To discover joy even in the midst of difficulty. One afternoon, sitting quietly with a cup of tea, I felt compelled to write a prayer, just a few simple lines. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. God, let me see your hand in all things. Help me trust your timing. Give me patience when I'm weary. And hope when I'm afraid. Writing that prayer helped me see how much I needed God's constant presence. Not just in the big moments, but in every breath, every thought, every step. That's when I realized faith isn't a magic wand. It's a daily choice, to trust, to hope, to love, even when it's hard. And the more I chose faith, the more I noticed miracles. Not always the kind that make headlines, but the quiet, powerful ones that change a heart. Healing relationships. New opportunities. Unexpected peace. One day, I looked back on the darkness I had walked through and understood, the prayer I prayed from emptiness was answered not by erasing my pain, but by filling it with God's presence. I no longer feared having nothing left because I knew that with God, even nothing can become everything. As I continued on this path, something incredible became clear: the power of surrender. Not surrender as giving up, but surrender as giving over, handing my broken pieces to God and trusting He would make something beautiful from them. For so long, I held on tightly to my pain, my fears, my failures. I thought if I let go, I would lose control. But in that surrender, I found freedom. One evening, alone with my thoughts, I whispered, "God, I surrender it all. Take what's left and make it new." That moment was like stepping off a cliff into the unknown, terrifying, but strangely exhilarating. The more I surrendered, the lighter I felt. My heart began to heal in ways I never imagined possible. It was then I understood that faith is not about the absence of struggle, but about finding strength within it. I remembered the words I once read, "When we are weak, then we are strong." And those words became my truth. The hardest moments became opportunities for growth. The broken pieces of my life started to fit together in a new way, creating a mosaic of hope and resilience. I also learned that God's timing is perfect, even when it feels delayed. Sometimes, the waiting is where the work happens, where patience grows, character forms, and faith deepens. During this time, I made it a daily habit to start my mornings by thanking God. It was simple, but transformative. Thank you for today. Thank you for your love. Thank you for never leaving me. Those words set the tone for my days. They reminded me to focus on gratitude rather than fear. And gratitude became a powerful weapon against despair. I also discovered that honest prayer, the kind that spills out your true feelings, your anger, your doubts, is welcomed by God. I didn't have to pretend to be strong or perfect. I could come as I was, raw and real. One night, overwhelmed by grief, I cried out, "God, why is this so hard? Why can't I just be okay?" In that silence, I felt a gentle assurance, not an answer, but a presence. It was enough. Faith, I realized, is about trusting the presence more than the explanation. And slowly, miracles unfolded, not always dramatic, but deeply meaningful. A repaired relationship with a family member. A new opportunity at work. Moments of unexpected joy and peace. These were the moments that proved God's faithfulness. Looking back, I see now that the prayer I made in desperation, "God, I have nothing left," was the beginning of everything. It was the moment I stopped trying to do it all on my own and started to truly lean into God's love and power. The impossible didn't just happen overnight. It happened through a process, through surrender, through faith, through daily choosing to trust. And that's the story I want to share with you. No matter where you are, no matter how lost you feel, know this: you are never alone. There is a love that never fails. A presence that never leaves. And a power that can turn your darkest night into a dawn of hope. As I look back on that season of my life, I realize how much the journey reshaped me, not just my circumstances, but who I am at the core. Faith carried me through when I couldn't carry myself. It taught me that even when everything seems lost, something powerful is quietly working behind the scenes. One thing became crystal clear: God's love is not dependent on our strength or our success. It's steadfast and unwavering, a constant source of hope, even when we feel broken. I learned that faith is less about having all the answers and more about trusting the one who does. It's about stepping forward, not knowing the path, but believing He will guide every step. The prayer I made in desperation, "God, I have nothing left," was not a cry of defeat, but the beginning of a new life. A life where I don't have to pretend to be okay. A life where vulnerability becomes a bridge to healing, not a weakness. A life where hope is not a fleeting feeling but a firm foundation. This journey has shown me that sometimes the impossible is just the possible waiting to unfold in God's perfect time. And that no matter how dark the night, dawn will come. If you're listening today and feel like you have nothing left, know that your prayer is heard. Know that even in the silence, even in the waiting, God's love is reaching out to you. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to take one small step in faith. Start by simply thanking God for the breath you have this moment. Whisper a prayer from your heart, no matter how broken it feels. God, I'm here. I need you. Please show me the way. And then watch how that simple act can begin to change everything. Because faith is not just a feeling, it's a choice. A choice to believe in the unseen, to hold on when it's hard, and to trust that God's plans for you are good. So wherever you are in your journey, remember this: you are not alone. And sometimes, the most powerful prayers come from having nothing left, because that's when we finally open our hands and hearts to receive everything. As this journey comes to a close, I want you to hold on to one simple truth: your story is not over. No matter how broken or lost you feel right now, there is a future waiting for you, filled with hope, healing, and new beginnings. Sometimes, it takes hitting rock bottom to finally see the hand that is always reaching out to us. I want you to know that your prayer, no matter how desperate or simple, is powerful. When you say, "God, I have nothing left," you are not confessing defeat, you are opening the door for transformation. That moment of surrender is the doorway to a life beyond what you can imagine. You don't have to carry your burdens alone anymore. There is a love that carries you when you are weary. There is a strength that holds you when you feel weak. And there is a light that shines brightest in your darkest hour. As you face your own challenges, remember this: faith is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when doubt creeps in, and nights when fear tries to steal your peace. But the choice is always yours: to hold on to hope, to keep praying, to keep believing. And even when the road seems impossible, God is already there, preparing a way you cannot yet see. So start where you are. Begin with a simple prayer of honesty and trust. God, I'm here. I don't have all the answers. But I believe you are with me. Let that prayer be the first step in a journey that will change your life forever. Because sometimes, the most miraculous things happen when we have nothing left to hold on to, except faith. Thank you for walking this story with me. May your heart be filled with courage, your soul with peace, and your life with the impossible made possible. God bless you.